As the boarding announcement crackled over the intercom, Maria took a deep breath, clutching her boarding pass tightly. She had always loved traveling, the excitement of exploring new places coursing through her veins. But today felt different. Today, she felt every ounce of her insecurity weighing heavily on her. The line moved slowly, and Maria could feel the eyes of other passengers on her as she made her way to the gate. The usual chatter of excitement was punctuated by whispers and stares, and Maria tried to shake off the anxiety creeping in. She was used to the uncomfortable glances. People had a tendency to judge before they even knew her story. When she finally reached her seat in the cramped economy cabin, Maria sighed, relieved to be in the air. But that relief was short-lived. As she settled in, adjusting her seatbelt, the flight attendant, Jessica, approached with an overly polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Excuse me, ma'am," Jessica said, her voice dripping with a forced sweetness. "We need to ensure that everyone has enough space. Can you make sure your armrests are down?" Maria felt her cheeks flush as she tried to comply, her heart racing. "I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get comfortable," she replied, her voice shaky. Jessica's smile faltered, and she leaned in closer, lowering her tone to a conspiratorial whisper. "You know, not everyone can fit in these seats," she remarked, glancing at the other passengers, who were now staring. A wave of humiliation washed over Maria, and she glanced around, desperate for support. Some passengers looked away, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Just then, a familiar face caught her eye, Keanu Reeves, seated a few rows back. He was engrossed in his phone, but Maria couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Perhaps he'd noticed what was happening. Jessica continued her tirade, making snide comments about safety regulations and passenger comfort, and Maria's heart sank. Every word felt like a stab to her self-esteem, and she fought back tears. It wasn't just about her size, it was about being treated like less than a human being. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. Maria thought bitterly. This is not how you start a journey. The thought was both ironic and painful. She had always believed in the goodness of humanity, but this moment was testing that faith. Just as she began to sink into her own despair, Keanu glanced up, his gaze sharp and aware. He had been observing the exchange, his expression shifting from confusion to concern. With a determined breath, he set his phone aside, feeling a familiar sense of justice stir within him. "What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?" he pondered silently, feeling the weight of the moment. He knew he couldn't just sit back and let this happen. Maria met Keanu's eyes for a brief moment, and she felt a spark of recognition. In that instant, it became clear to her that she wasn't alone. The flight was about to take off, but little did they all know that it was also the beginning of a much larger journey, one that would challenge perceptions, ignite courage, and reveal the true strength of humanity. As the flight took off, the plane vibrated with the familiar roar of engines, but the tension inside the cabin was palpable. Maria tried to focus on the safety instructions being delivered over the intercom, but her mind was still replaying Jessica's hurtful comments. The flight attendant's words echoed in her head, drowning out the reassuring voice of the flight crew. Keanu watched from his seat, feeling a growing unease. He had always admired the kindness and compassion of people around him, but witnessing Jessica's behavior ignited a fire within him. He knew he had to act. A few rows ahead, Maria's discomfort was evident. She fidgeted with her seatbelt, trying to find a way to make herself smaller, to blend into the background. As the plane climbed higher, she felt the weight of judgment pressing down on her, and it was suffocating. Jessica returned to the aisle, this time with a drink cart. When she reached Maria, she leaned down, a condescending smile plastered on her face. "Can I get you something to drink?" she asked, her tone laced with sarcasm. "I hope you can fit into the seat without spilling." The laughter of a nearby passenger, one who had clearly found the situation amusing, only intensified Maria's humiliation. She forced a smile, her heart racing. "Just water, please." "Water it is," Jessica said, barely hiding her disdain as she poured the drink. "I'll just need you to keep your arms in. We wouldn't want any accidents." Keanu's blood boiled. He had had enough. He rose from his seat and strode towards Jessica, his presence commanding attention. "Excuse me," he said firmly, stopping her in her tracks. Jessica turned, her confident demeanor faltering. "Can I help you?" "Yes, you can. I think it's time we treat all passengers with respect, regardless of their size," Keanu replied, his voice steady but filled with urgency. The cabin fell silent, all eyes turning toward them. Maria watched, her heart pounding, a mixture of fear and hope swirling within her. Would Keanu be able to change the course of this encounter? Jessica straightened, her expression shifting to one of irritation. "I'm just doing my job, and safety is important." "Safety doesn't come at the cost of someone's dignity," Keanu countered, his gaze unwavering. "You have no right to speak to anyone that way. Are you saying I should let her take up more space than necessary?" Jessica shot back, her defensiveness rising. "I'm saying you need to rethink how you treat people. We're all human here," he said, his voice calm but assertive. "And we all deserve kindness." Maria felt a swell of gratitude toward Keanu. In that moment, he was not just a Hollywood star, he was an advocate for humanity. The tension in the cabin was electric, and passengers began to murmur in agreement, rallying behind Keanu's stance. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. Maria thought, her heart racing. This was no ordinary flight, it was a pivotal moment. She wished she could capture it, share it, and inspire others to stand up for what was right. Jessica's bravado wavered as she glanced around the cabin, realizing that the passengers were no longer passive observers. Keanu's intervention had sparked a collective awareness, forcing her to confront her behavior. "Fine," she huffed, crossing her arms defensively. "I'll be more considerate." "You don't just become considerate when it's convenient," Keanu replied, his tone softer but no less firm. "You need to embody it. Start now." The mood shifted in the cabin. What had begun as a moment of conflict was transforming into a lesson on empathy. Maria felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, and the passenger's support gave her strength. "Thank you," Maria finally spoke, her voice steadier than she felt. "I appreciate you standing up for me." Keanu turned to her, a warm smile breaking through the tension. "You deserve to be treated with respect, Maria. No one should make you feel otherwise." The flight continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Passengers began to chat among themselves, some sharing stories of their own struggles with body image and discrimination. A sense of camaraderie grew, uniting them against the negativity that had permeated the flight. As the journey progressed, Maria felt a newfound sense of empowerment. Keanu's intervention had not only addressed the immediate issue but had also inspired her to reflect on her own worth. She was more than her appearance, she was a person deserving of respect. However, as the plane soared through the clouds, Maria knew the conflict wasn't over. Jessica's attitude might have softened, but the underlying issues of prejudice and misunderstanding still loomed large. The real challenge lay ahead. As the flight attendants resumed their duties, Keanu took a seat beside Maria. "How are you holding up?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. "Honestly? I feel a bit better now," she admitted, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. "Thank you for stepping in. It means more than you know." "I couldn't just sit back and let it happen," he said. "We have to support one another. It's the only way we can create change." Maria nodded, inspired by his words. "You're right. I've always struggled to stand up for myself, but maybe this is my moment to start." As they continued their conversation, Maria felt the burden of shame begin to lift. Keanu's kindness and encouragement were helping her see her own strength. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed with a newfound sense of self-worth and determination. The journey was far from over, but with allies like Keanu, Maria felt hopeful. Together, they would navigate the challenges ahead, turning this flight into a catalyst for change. As the plane soared through the sky, Keanu felt a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. The confrontation with Jessica had ignited a spark of courage within him, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his intervention had only scratched the surface of a much deeper issue. He glanced over at Maria, who was now engaged in conversation with the passengers around her, her confidence visibly growing. But Keanu knew that the conflict between Maria and Jessica was symptomatic of a broader societal problem, one that he had witnessed time and again in various forms throughout his life. He had been bullied as a child for his appearance, and he understood the pain that came from being judged and marginalized. As he looked out the window, the clouds drifting by, he remembered a time when he had chosen silence over action. It was a painful memory, one he had tried to forget. Back in high school, he had stood by while a classmate was relentlessly teased for being different. He had felt the pull to intervene, but fear had held him back. The regret had haunted him ever since. Now, as an adult, he realized the importance of standing up for others. He knew he couldn't let that fear dictate his actions again. The responsibility to foster kindness and acceptance lay not just with flight attendants or authority figures, but with every individual. Maria turned to him, her eyes bright with gratitude. "You really made a difference back there," she said, her voice steady. "I don't think I could have faced Jessica alone." Keanu smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I'm just glad you're feeling better. No one should have to go through what you did. But why did you decide to step in?" "You didn't have to," she pressed, curiosity dancing in her gaze. He hesitated, weighing his words carefully. "Honestly? It's something I've struggled with my whole life. I've seen what silence can do. I didn't want to be a bystander this time." Maria nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. "It takes a lot of courage to speak up, especially in situations like that. I wish more people would." Keanu leaned in closer. "It's not just about courage, Maria. It's about compassion. We all need to do better at supporting each other." As their conversation deepened, a realization began to crystallize in Maria's mind. Keanu wasn't just an actor, he was a person who genuinely cared about making the world a better place. She felt inspired by his commitment to kindness, and it fueled her own desire to advocate for herself and others. Suddenly, Jessica reappeared, this time with a slightly less forced smile. "I wanted to apologize for my earlier behavior," she said, looking directly at Maria. "I realize now that I was out of line." Maria took a deep breath, her heart racing. "Thank you for saying that," she replied cautiously. "It means a lot to hear it. I've been doing this job for a long time, and I've seen many people from all walks of life," Jessica continued. "But I know I've let my own biases affect how I treat others. I want to do better." Keanu watched as the dynamic shifted. Jessica's admission was a step toward growth, and he felt a flicker of hope. It was a reminder that change was possible, even for those who had initially acted out of ignorance. "But it's not just about your behavior," Maria interjected gently. "It's about how we all perceive and treat each other in society. There's a lot of work to be done, and we need to hold each other accountable." Jessica nodded, the weight of the conversation settling in. "You're right. I can't change overnight, but I can start by being more aware of my words and actions." Keanu interjected, his voice calm but firm. "That's the first step. Acknowledging our biases is key to creating an inclusive environment." The three of them continued their dialogue, discussing the challenges of body image, societal expectations, and the importance of empathy. Other passengers began to join in, sharing their own experiences and perspectives. What had begun as a moment of conflict had now evolved into a conversation about understanding and healing. As the flight progressed, Maria felt empowered by the support surrounding her. She was no longer just a victim of circumstance, she was a catalyst for change, using her voice to foster awareness and connection. Keanu glanced around, observing the camaraderie forming among the passengers. It was a heartwarming sight, one that reminded him of the power of human connection. He couldn't help but feel optimistic about the potential for growth and understanding in a world often clouded by judgment. But as they neared their destination, Keanu couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was just beginning. The conversation they had started needed to continue beyond the confines of the airplane. He wanted to ensure that the lessons learned here didn't fade away the moment they stepped off the plane. As the plane began its descent, Maria looked at Keanu, her eyes shining with determination. "We should do something to keep this conversation going," she suggested. "Maybe a community event or a discussion group?" Keanu's face lit up with enthusiasm. "That's a fantastic idea. We can use social media to reach out and create a platform for people to share their stories and support one another." Together, they brainstormed ideas, fueled by a shared passion for creating positive change. The flight may have been coming to an end, but their mission was just beginning. As the plane landed and the passengers began to gather their belongings, Maria felt a sense of pride swelling in her chest. She had faced her fears, found her voice, and, with the help of Keanu, was ready to advocate for herself and others. With a newfound resolve, Maria knew that she was not just an overweight woman on a plane, she was a champion for compassion and understanding, ready to challenge the world to do better. As the plane taxied to the gate, the atmosphere buzzed with a mixture of anticipation and camaraderie. Maria could feel the adrenaline still coursing through her veins from the earlier confrontation, but now it was infused with excitement. The passengers who had witnessed Keanu's stand began to chat among themselves, sharing stories and experiences of discrimination and empathy. It felt like they were all part of something bigger, something transformative. Once they disembarked, Keanu turned to Maria. "Let's grab a coffee and continue this conversation. I think we have a lot more to discuss." Maria nodded eagerly, her heart racing at the thought of what lay ahead. She had never been one to engage with strangers, let alone a Hollywood star, but this felt different. This was about more than just her, it was about changing perceptions and creating a community. They found a quiet cafe in the terminal, where the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the excitement of travelers coming and going. Keanu ordered 2 coffees and sat across from Maria, his expression focused and thoughtful. "So, what do you envision for this community initiative?" he asked, leaning forward. Maria took a sip of her coffee, feeling the warmth spread through her. "I think it's important to create a safe space where people can share their experiences without fear of judgment. We can hold discussions, workshops, and even invite speakers who have overcome similar challenges." "I love that idea," Keanu replied. "We could also use social media to promote body positivity and kindness. It's a powerful tool for reaching a wider audience." As they brainstormed, Maria's confidence blossomed. She had always felt hesitant to express her thoughts, but with Keanu's encouragement, she found her voice growing stronger. They discussed potential partnerships with local organizations that focused on mental health and body image, and how to make their events inclusive and welcoming. Meanwhile, the cafe was filled with chatter, but Maria and Keanu seemed to be in their own world, animatedly sketching out plans. They were so engrossed that they didn't notice Jessica enter the cafe until she approached their table. "Hey, do you mind if I join you?" Jessica asked, her tone friendly but cautious. "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation on the plane." "Of course," Maria said, genuinely pleased to see her. "We were just discussing how to keep the conversation going." Jessica sat down, her expression earnest. "I really want to be part of this. I know I have a lot to learn, and I want to help create a space where people feel respected." Keanu smiled, impressed by her willingness to engage. "That's a great attitude, Jessica. It's all about growth, and we all have room for improvement. As they continued to talk, Maria noticed a change in Jessica's demeanor. The former flight attendant was no longer defensive or dismissive, she seemed genuinely invested in the mission they were creating together. Maria shared her ideas for workshops focused on self-acceptance and resilience, while Jessica offered insights from her experiences in the service industry, highlighting the need for training on compassion and sensitivity. Their conversation flowed seamlessly, and Maria found herself feeling a sense of camaraderie with both Keanu and Jessica. They were united by a common goal: to make the world a kinder, more understanding place. However, as they wrapped up their meeting, Maria felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. What if this doesn't work out? What if we can't make a difference, she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. Keanu leaned in, his eyes filled with reassurance. Every great change starts with a single step. It won't happen overnight, but if we're committed, we can create something meaningful. And remember, even small actions can have a big impact. Jessica nodded in agreement. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm ready to own them and learn. This is a chance for all of us to grow together. Feeling inspired, Maria took a deep breath. Okay, let's do this. Let's create a community that fosters compassion and understanding. We can start with a social media campaign to gauge interest and get people involved. With newfound determination, they began outlining a plan. They would create a hashtag to promote body positivity, encouraging people to share their stories and support one another. They would reach out to local businesses for sponsorships and resources, and they would plan an event to launch their initiative. As they exchanged ideas and laughter, Maria felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. This was more than just a project, it was a movement toward change, and she was at the forefront. But even as hope blossomed, a small voice of doubt crept in. Would they face backlash? Would they be able to navigate the challenges ahead? As if sensing her uncertainty, Keanu placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Whatever happens, we're in this together. And that makes all the difference. Feeling the warmth of his support, Maria smiled. She realized that they were not just allies in this mission, they were friends united by a common purpose. Together, they would confront the challenges ahead, inspire others, and foster a community built on understanding and acceptance. With a sense of urgency and excitement, they set to work, diving into their plans with fervor. The journey ahead would be filled with ups and downs, but for the first time in a long time, Maria felt ready to face whatever came next. As the weeks flew by, Maria, Keanu, and Jessica immersed themselves in planning their community initiative. They quickly became a well-known trio in the local area, united by a shared mission of compassion and body positivity. Their social media campaign took off, attracting attention and engagement from people far and wide. The hashtag #kindness in every size began trending, and soon stories started pouring in. People shared their experiences of feeling judged, marginalized, and unsupported. They spoke of their struggles with self-acceptance and their journeys toward embracing their true selves. Maria felt a swell of pride as she read through the posts, each story echoed her own struggles, yet they also resonated with a powerful message of resilience. But just as things seemed to be gaining momentum, Maria received a message that sent her heart plummeting. It was a direct message on social media from a well-known influencer in the fitness community, who had a significant following. The message contained a sharp criticism of their campaign, questioning the validity of promoting body positivity for larger bodies. The influencer's words were harsh and dismissive, labeling their initiative as promoting unhealthy habits. Maria's heart raced as she shared the message with Keanu and Jessica. "What do we do?" she asked, anxiety creeping into her voice. "This could derail everything we've worked for." Keanu frowned, his jaw set in determination. "We can't let one person's negativity overshadow the positive impact we're making. We have to address it head-on." Jessica added, "Let's respond thoughtfully. We need to clarify that body positivity is about acceptance and love for oneself, regardless of size. But Maria felt overwhelmed by the prospect of facing such a large voice in the community. What if it turns into a backlash? What if people start attacking us? She fretted. Keanu leaned closer, his gaze steady. Every movement faces challenges, especially when it disrupts the status quo. We need to stay true to our message. You've already inspired so many people. Don't let fear silence you. Taking a deep breath, Maria nodded, feeling a surge of determination. Okay, let's respond. We'll share a post that addresses the criticism and highlights the importance of body positivity in all forms. They crafted a thoughtful response, emphasizing that body positivity was not about promoting unhealthy lifestyles but about fostering self-acceptance and love, encouraging everyone to embrace their uniqueness. They included testimonials from individuals who had benefited from the initiative, showcasing the real-life impact of their movement. As the post went live, Maria felt a mix of excitement and dread. She watched the notifications flood in, her heart racing. The initial reactions were mixed, some supported their message, while others echoed the influencer's sentiments, questioning the campaign's integrity. Just when she thought it couldn't get worse, a wave of negative comments began to flood in. "This is just an excuse for laziness," one user wrote. "If you're promoting unhealthy lifestyles, you're just enabling bad habits." Another chimed in, "Real change requires discipline, not acceptance." Maria felt her heart sink as she read through the comments, feeling exposed and vulnerable. It was a gut punch, and for a moment, doubt crept back in. Maybe they're right, she thought. Maybe I should just give up. But then she remembered the faces of those who had shared their stories, people who had felt seen for the first time, people who were inspired to love themselves despite societal standards. Keanu's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "Maria, look at all the support coming in too. This isn't just about us, it's about everyone who has ever felt marginalized. We can't let negativity drown out the positive voices." Jessica nodded, adding, "We've created a space for dialogue, and that's valuable. The backlash just shows how necessary our work is." Feeling emboldened, Maria took a deep breath and started responding to comments, acknowledging the fears and doubts people had about body positivity. She shared her own experiences of struggling with self-acceptance and how the movement had helped her find strength. "I'm not promoting unhealthy habits, I'm promoting the idea that every body deserves love," she wrote. As the conversation continued, she noticed a shift. Supporters rallied around her, sharing their own experiences and countering the negativity. The tide began to turn, and for every negative comment, there were 10 voices advocating for love and acceptance. It was then that Keanu stepped in, posting a heartfelt video message. "I've been where many of you are now, and I know the pain of feeling judged. We're all on this journey together, and it's important to lift each other up, not tear each other down. Body positivity is about empowerment, and everyone deserves to feel that." Maria watched the views climb, her heart swelling with gratitude. Keanu's influence lent credibility to their movement, and it was clear the message was resonating. Slowly but surely, the negative comments began to wane. Hours turned into a whirlwind of responses and support, and by the end of the day, their post had gone viral, reaching a far wider audience than they ever imagined. People shared stories of empowerment and strength, and many began to post their own affirmations of self-love. In that moment, Maria felt a wave of catharsis wash over her. The challenge they faced had only solidified their resolve, proving that their message was more crucial than ever. As the night wore on, the three of them gathered together, exhilaration and exhaustion etched on their faces. "We did it," Maria breathed, overwhelmed with emotion. "We really did it." Keanu grinned, pride shining in his eyes. "You stood your ground, and that's what matters." Jessica chimed in, "This is just the beginning. Let's keep this momentum going and reach even more people." In that moment, Maria realized the true power of their initiative. It wasn't just about body positivity, it was about community, resilience, and standing together against negativity. They were not just allies, they were warriors for change, ready to face whatever lay ahead. And as they looked to the future, Maria knew they were on the brink of something truly transformative. Together, they would continue to foster compassion, understanding, and acceptance, turning their struggles into strength. With the momentum of their campaign surging, Maria, Keanu, and Jessica felt a renewed sense of purpose. The response to their initiative had been overwhelming, and they were ready to channel that energy into creating real change within their community. In the weeks following the viral post, they organized a launch event for #KindnessInEverySize. The venue was filled with excitement, a cozy community center that felt both inviting and energizing. Banners decorated with uplifting messages lined the walls, and tables were set up for resource sharing, showcasing local organizations focused on mental health and body image. As attendees filed in, Maria felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. She glanced at Keanu, who was mingling with the crowd, sharing his own experiences of self-acceptance. Jessica was busy welcoming guests, her enthusiasm contagious. The sense of camaraderie was palpable, it felt like they were all part of a movement. When it was time for Maria to speak, she took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphone. Her heart raced, but she focused on the faces in the audience, so many people eager to be part of something meaningful. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady. This initiative started as a small idea to create a safe space for everyone to feel accepted, no matter their size. "We've faced challenges, but together, we've turned those challenges into strength." She shared her own story of struggle, detailing her journey towards self-acceptance and how she had once felt like an outsider. "But I've learned that our differences are what make us beautiful. When we embrace who we are, we empower not just ourselves but those around us." The crowd erupted into applause, and Maria's confidence soared. As she continued, she introduced various speakers, mental health advocates, body image activists, and individuals who shared their personal stories of overcoming adversity. Each voice added a layer of depth to the event, reinforcing the message of unity and acceptance. As the day unfolded, attendees participated in workshops that focused on self-care, body image, and resilience. Maria felt a sense of fulfillment as she watched people engage, share, and support one another. It was as if the walls that had once divided them were crumbling, replaced by a shared understanding. After a particularly moving workshop, Maria found herself sitting with Keanu and Jessica, reflecting on the day. "I can't believe how far we've come," she said, her eyes shining. "This feels like a real turning point." Keanu nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You've created something powerful, Maria. This isn't just an event, it's a movement. And movements start with individuals like you, willing to share their stories." Jessica chimed in, "It's amazing to see so many people come together. I think we've created a space where others can feel safe to share their struggles too." As the event came to a close, Maria felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The feedback had been incredible. People shared how the workshops had impacted them personally, how they felt inspired to embrace their bodies and to lift others up. But just as she was basking in the warmth of success, a familiar feeling of doubt crept in. What if this is just a moment? What if it doesn't last? She confided in Keanu and Jessica. Keanu looked at her with sincerity. "Every moment counts. Change isn't instantaneous, it's a process. What matters is that you've planted the seeds. Now it's about nurturing them." Jessica added, "We can keep this conversation alive by following up with regular events, creating an online community, and continuing to share stories. This is only the beginning." As they packed up the venue, Maria felt the weight of their mission settling comfortably on her shoulders. She realized that while challenges would always exist, they were equipped to face them together. They had created a community rooted in love, understanding, and resilience. In the weeks that followed, Maria dedicated herself to expanding their initiative. They launched a monthly support group where people could share their experiences and provide mutual encouragement. They also created a podcast featuring interviews with activists, health professionals, and everyday heroes who exemplified body positivity. One evening, while reviewing their plans for an upcoming episode, Maria received a notification on her phone. It was a message from the same influencer who had initially criticized their campaign. Her heart raced as she opened the message, expecting more negativity. To her surprise, the message read, "I've been following your journey, and I want to apologize. I didn't fully understand what body positivity meant until I read the stories and heard the voices of those involved in your movement. I'd like to collaborate and learn more." Maria's jaw dropped, disbelief washing over her. "You won't believe this," she exclaimed, showing the message to Keanu and Jessica. "That's incredible." Keanu replied, a grin spreading across his face. "It shows that people can change, that your message is breaking through." "I can't believe it took a backlash for her to see it," Jessica said, shaking her head in amazement. "But it's a step in the right direction." As they discussed the potential collaboration, Maria felt a surge of hope. It was proof that their message was reaching beyond their immediate community, challenging preconceived notions, and encouraging dialogue. By the time their first podcast episode aired, Maria felt both excited and nervous. As they shared their stories, she hoped it would resonate with others and inspire them to join the movement. Weeks turned into months, and the initiative continued to grow, thriving on the principles of compassion, kindness, and unity. Maria had transformed from a woman filled with self-doubt to a beacon of hope, leading a movement that was changing lives. One evening, as she reflected on her journey, Maria realized how much she had learned. She had discovered the power of vulnerability and the strength that comes from sharing one's story. More importantly, she had learned that love and acceptance could conquer fear and negativity. As she prepared for the next event, she felt a sense of excitement bubbling within her. This was not just about body positivity, it was about creating a world where everyone felt valued and loved, regardless of their size. With Keanu and Jessica by her side, Maria was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that together, they could change the narrative, one story at a time. As the months passed, the hashtag Kindness in Every Size movement continued to flourish, drawing attention from local and national media. Maria, Keanu, and Jessica became recognizable figures in the body positivity movement, often invited to speak at events and participate in panels. They were filled with a sense of purpose, inspiring others to embrace their bodies and share their stories. However, with their growing visibility came new challenges. One sunny afternoon, Maria received a phone call that would test her resolve. It was a producer from a major talk show, interested in featuring their initiative. Excited yet anxious, Maria relayed the news to Keanu and Jessica. "This is huge!" Jessica exclaimed, her eyes wide with enthusiasm. "Think about the reach we could have." Keanu nodded, though a hint of concern shadowed his face. "It's a great opportunity, but let's make sure we're prepared. This kind of exposure can attract both supporters and detractors." Maria felt her heart race. "What if we get negative feedback again? I'm not sure I can handle that after everything we've worked for." Jessica placed a reassuring hand on Maria's shoulder. "We've come so far, Maria. We can handle this. And remember, we'll have each other's backs." After several discussions, they agreed to go ahead with the interview. The day of the taping arrived, and the trio stepped into the studio, the bright lights shining down and cameras positioned to capture their every move. Maria felt a mix of exhilaration and nervousness, her stomach fluttering with anticipation. When the host welcomed them on stage, Maria's heart raced as they exchanged pleasantries. The conversation flowed naturally at first, with the host asking about their campaign and the impact it had on the community. Maria spoke passionately, sharing stories of those who had embraced their bodies and found strength in vulnerability. But just as the discussion took a positive turn, the host pivoted with a challenging question. There are critics who argue that body positivity can promote unhealthy lifestyles. How do you respond to that? Maria's heart sank. She had anticipated tough questions, but this felt like a direct challenge to everything they stood for. Keanu and Jessica exchanged quick glances, silently encouraging her to stay strong. Body positivity isn't about promoting unhealthy choices, Maria began, her voice steady. It's about recognizing that every body deserves love and respect. It's essential to differentiate between health and body size. Many people can lead healthy lives regardless of their appearance. The host nodded, but the tone of the conversation shifted as more pointed questions emerged. But isn't there a risk that promoting acceptance could lead to complacency? How do you address that concern? Maria felt the weight of the question bearing down on her, and her mind raced. I think it's crucial to foster a culture of support rather than shame, she replied, her passion igniting. Encouraging self-love doesn't negate the importance of health. It empowers individuals to take charge of their own lives, which ultimately leads to better health outcomes. The discussion continued, with the host pressing on, and Maria felt herself becoming increasingly frustrated. It was clear that the narrative was shifting, and she could sense the audience's mixed reactions. Some were nodding in agreement, while others appeared skeptical. After the taping, Maria left the studio feeling drained. The interview had felt like a tightrope walk, and she worried that they hadn't effectively communicated their message. As they walked back to their car, silence filled the air. What just happened? Jessica finally broke the silence, her brow furrowed with concern. I don't know, Maria admitted, her heart heavy. I felt like we were being cornered. I just hope people understood what we were trying to say. Keanu put a comforting arm around her shoulders. You did great, Maria. You held your ground. But I think we need to be prepared for any backlash that might come from this. That night, as Maria scrolled through social media, her apprehensions were confirmed. Comments flooded in, some praising their efforts, but many echoed concerns similar to those posed by the host. This is just promoting laziness, one commenter wrote. We need to focus on health, not just acceptance. Feeling overwhelmed, Maria shared her frustrations with Keanu and Jessica the next day. It's disheartening to see so much negativity, she said, her voice tinged with defeat. We're trying to create a positive change, but it feels like we're being pulled back. Keanu nodded thoughtfully. Let's turn this around. Instead of letting the critics silence us, we can use this as an opportunity to educate. We can host a live Q&A session to address these concerns head-on. Jessica chimed in, we could invite health professionals to join us, showing that body positivity and health can coexist. It's a chance to clarify our message. As the idea took shape, Maria felt a flicker of hope reignite within her. Let's do it. Let's create a platform where people can express their concerns and learn. They quickly organized the live session, promoting it across social media and inviting experts from the fields of nutrition and mental health. When the day arrived, Maria felt a renewed sense of purpose as they set up for the event. She was ready to engage with the community and provide clarity on their mission. The Q&A session began, and Maria, Keanu, and Jessica addressed questions about body positivity, health, and self-acceptance. They encouraged open dialogue, allowing people to share their thoughts and concerns without judgment. As the conversation flowed, Maria felt a sense of relief wash over her. The audience engaged, asking questions and sharing experiences. Health professionals emphasized the importance of mental well-being in achieving physical health, reinforcing the message that body positivity was not at odds with promoting healthy lifestyles. By the end of the session, Maria felt invigorated. They had turned the negativity into a constructive conversation, fostering understanding and compassion. In the following days, the atmosphere surrounding their initiative shifted. Supporters rallied behind them, sharing their own stories and echoing the importance of fostering kindness in every size. The live Q&A had turned a challenging moment into a platform for growth, and Maria realized how powerful community could be in navigating obstacles. As they celebrated their success, Maria felt a renewed sense of gratitude for the journey they had undertaken. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, but together, they could face anything. Months passed, and the hashtag Kindness in Every Size movement blossomed into a national conversation. Maria, Keanu, and Jessica found themselves at the forefront of a growing community, united by a shared mission of acceptance and compassion. Their message reached far beyond social media, inspiring conversations in schools, workplaces, and even within families. One crisp autumn morning, Maria woke up to a flurry of messages on her phone. She opened her social media accounts to find a video that had gone viral overnight. It featured a young girl, no older than 10, standing in front of her class and sharing her own journey of self-acceptance. She held up a sign that read, "I love my body, just the way it is." Tears welled in Maria's eyes as she watched the video. The girl's message was clear and powerful, resonating with the core values of their initiative. Maria felt an overwhelming sense of pride, realizing that their movement had inspired the next generation to embrace their uniqueness. Keanu. Jessica. Maria called out, unable to contain her excitement. When they joined her, she showed them the video. "Look at this. We're making a real difference." Keanu smiled warmly. "That's incredible, Maria. It's moments like these that remind us why we started this journey." Jessica added, "We should reach out to her and her family. Let them know how much they inspire us." They quickly drafted a heartfelt message to the girl, inviting her and her family to their next event. It was a chance to connect with a young champion of body positivity and to celebrate the ripple effect of their work. As the days turned into weeks, anticipation built for the upcoming event, a community fair dedicated to body positivity, self-love, and mental health awareness. Maria, Keanu, and Jessica poured their hearts into organizing activities, workshops, and discussions aimed at empowering attendees of all ages. On the day of the fair, the park was alive with color and energy. Booths lined the pathways, showcasing local artists, mental health resources, and wellness activities. Children laughed and played, while adults engaged in meaningful conversations about self-acceptance and kindness. As Maria moved through the crowd, she spotted the young girl from the video, her parents beaming with pride as they approached. "Maria," the girl called out, waving enthusiastically. "Hi there. I'm so glad you could make it." Maria replied, kneeling down to meet her eye to eye. "Your video inspired so many people. You're a true leader." The girl blushed, her cheeks turning pink. "Thank you. I wanted to share my story because I believe everyone should feel good about themselves." Throughout the day, the atmosphere was filled with laughter and camaraderie. Maria facilitated a workshop where attendees could share their experiences and learn from one another. Keanu and Jessica led discussions on mental health and self-care, fostering an environment of support and openness. As the sun began to set, the fair culminated in a group gathering. Maria stood on a stage, looking out at the smiling faces illuminated by the golden light. She felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice filled with emotion. "This movement is about more than just body positivity, it's about creating a world where kindness and acceptance prevail. Together, we are breaking down barriers and building a community that celebrates every individual, no matter their size." The crowd erupted into applause, and Maria felt a sense of unity that was palpable. They had created something beautiful together, a movement that was shifting the narrative and empowering people from all walks of life. After the fair, Maria, Keanu, and Jessica reflected on their journey. They realized how far they had come, from a single incident on a flight to a widespread movement that had touched countless lives. But they also knew their work was far from over. Determined to keep the momentum going, they began brainstorming ideas for future initiatives. They envisioned collaborations with schools to promote body positivity education, workshops for parents to foster open conversations with their children, and partnerships with healthcare providers to ensure that discussions around health included all body types. As they planned, Maria felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not just advocates, they were changemakers, paving the way for a brighter future. She knew that as long as they continued to lift each other up, their movement would thrive. Months later, they received an invitation to speak at a national conference on health and wellness. Maria's heart raced at the thought of sharing their message with a broader audience. "This is our chance to amplify our voice even more," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. With Keanu and Jessica by her side, Maria stepped onto the stage at the conference. As she looked out at the audience, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. They had created a legacy rooted in love, acceptance, and kindness. As she spoke, she shared the stories of individuals whose lives had been transformed by their movement, each tale woven together by the common thread of resilience. The audience listened intently, captivated by the message of hope. "Together, we can change the narrative," Maria declared, her voice rising with passion. "Let's continue to champion kindness in every size and inspire the world to embrace love, acceptance, and understanding." As the conference concluded, attendees approached them with heartfelt messages of gratitude and support. They had sparked a movement that transcended individual experiences, creating a community dedicated to uplifting one another. Looking back on their journey, Maria, Keanu, and Jessica realized they had not only changed the lives of others but had also transformed themselves in the process. They had grown stronger, more resilient, and more committed to their mission than ever before. With each step forward, they continued to embrace the idea that every body tells a story, and every story deserves to be heard. And as long as they stood together, there would always be a beacon of hope, guiding others toward a future filled with kindness and acceptance.